I quote the poet again, where are the men seized in this wind of madness? What is happening in this country? What is this squandermania all about? Where are public monies going? $60 million is not a bus fare. $60 million is a lot of money. It is not as much as 188 million, but it is a lot of money. And then we telling weekly paid workers that we can't give them a job. And we could bring all manner of mankind into this country. And even if they're not in this country, we can pay them these large salaries in an economy that is struggling, except that the government believes it is buoyant. And that is the sordid tale of this thing called hope. They really need to rename it. They really do need to rename it. But as it transpires, the houses will have to be conveyed at less than cost. In other words, hope has been so badly managed that the houses, if they are to sell those houses at a profit, they would have to push them down. So what is the compromise? The compromise now has been to give the houses to certain people. Lucky people. Nameless people. I'm not going to abuse them. I don't use the privilege that I enjoy here to abuse people. I don't do that. But there is a lucky list. And as I said, in my mother's house, there used to be the plaque. The book of life. Is my name written there? There's a book of life at Lancaster. Minister, is my name written there? Am I one of those lucky people? But we will all find out in the fullness of time who are those lucky people who will get houses at below cost. I'm happy for them. But where's the hope? Where's the taxpayers' $60 million? Where is it? Being paid every month to two people in exile, one in South Africa and one in St. Lucia. And our poor people's children who have an education can't get a job and have to go off to Canada and have to go off to the United States and England and the Caribbean because this government is presiding over an administration that is excluding local talent, that is marginalizing young Barbadians who have a right, whose parents made mountainous sacrifice, like your parents, Minister, and your parents and mine, to give us an education, and this government denies them and brings these expensive executives. There's a trend. BTMI, QEH, Hope. Whose turn is next? Whose turn is next? To have these gurus implanted on our public corporations at the expense of talented and bright Barbadians. I move on. I move on. It does not make me happy that the Ministry of the Attorney General, and I'm on the subject of governance, has not seen it fit, and I said this a few minutes ago, has not seen it fit to amend the Sexual Offences Act as the court prescribed should be done. This court made a ruling which fundamentally altered, I beg your pardon, the tenor and the content of that legislation. That legislation now contains what we call a lacuna. There's a hole in the law. And this Attorney General has not seen it fit to do his duty and to amend that legislation months later. It's a simple amendment. Somebody could do it for him. He could call me. He could call the Honorable Speaker. Not many more esteemed and qualified in the law than this good gentleman who happens to be our Speaker. Call the Speaker. He brings the cybercrime bill in here. That is recalled. I could say case closed. But when I say case closed, it does not mean that I am closing my presentation. Those were most unhappy words uttered a few weeks ago. Case closed. A matter occupied the attention of the courts in this country a few months ago. And this country started to ask questions about that case in relation to ministerial conduct. I didn't ask them. This country started to ask questions about ministerial conduct, about the association of private contractors with ministries. And it is my duty as leader of the opposition to ask the questions, the answers to which the people are demanding. I defy, through you, sir, this Prime Minister, the right and the authority to close any case in any court. A Prime Minister does not have that authority. A Prime Minister heads one of the constitutional bodies. It is high office, but that body must remain separate from the courts. And it falls outside of the power of any Prime Minister to determine that a case is closed. It is an undue influence against the independence of the judiciary. That is what separation of powers means. It is literal separation of powers. And I say it in here all the time, the cabinet, the parliament, and the judiciary are separate, except that members of the cabinet are also members of this parliament. And so we say there is an incestuous relationship that is allowed between the cabinet and the parliament. But there must be no contamination of matters of judicial interest. Members of the executive must stay far from the administration of justice. Far. And a Prime Minister cannot deem any case closed. Cannot. It is an interference with the judicial function, the constitutional judicial function that is exclusive to the judiciary. And that's the first point I make in relation to that sad case. All I will do for the public of Barbados, all I will do is that I will read Section 8.2 of the Prevention of Corruption Act. That's all I will do. I'm not here to embarrass. I have a public duty. And when the public asks questions, even with a sense of decorum, I must give those answers. I remember well the debate when the Prevention of Corruption Act came to this place. We were at Worthing at the time. And I made the point that we as politicians, whatever is our self-perception, the public really does not think we are angels. That we come to this job with reputations that are not always, I don't want to use the word savory, but I think I will. Politicians are seen as people disposed, whether by occupation of high office or by personal proclivity. We are seen as people disposed to wrongdoing. That's how we are seen. I don't know if we don't understand that, and that is what I said during that debate. This is what the law says. A person exercising public functions who solicits or accepts an advantage as an inducement to or reward for or otherwise on account of his given assistance or using his real or perceived influence in the promotion, procuring, or execution of, or for the payment of the price or other considerations stipulated or otherwise provided for in any contract for the promotion, procuring, or execution of any contract with a public authority for the supply of goods, services, or works is guilty of an offense. It is beyond a prime minister to determine that any case is closed. This is the province of the Director of Public Prosecutions. This is the province of the Director of Public Prosecutions. And we are not saying that anyone is guilty, but we make a point based on principle that there must be separation of powers if this Constitution is to have its original meaning. That executive powers and judicial functions are clean and separate. And that it constitutes a trespass when an official as high as the office of Prime Minister ventures in to matters of this nature and says, case closed. I don't have that power. A Prime Minister doesn't have that power. The Speaker doesn't have that power. What you are doing, you're exercising undue influence, holding high office against a Director of Public Prosecutions, who is an officer within the administration of justice, within the judiciary. And there's only one person in this country who can determine that a case is closed. And that is the Director of Public Prosecutions. She or he, or she in this case, is the only person with the authority to go to a court and initiate or to stop a case. One person in this country has that power. The Director of Public Prosecution. So when those words, case closed, were uttered, it was a fundamental breach of constitutional law. It was a breach of duty. It was a breach of power. All I will say on that legislation, and I remember the debate well, the Honorable Member for Christchurch East, when he was in the debate, he said, even the burden of proof is reversed. I remember it well. In other words, that the person who is charged for an offense under this legislation has to prove his innocence. Normally in a court, the prosecution must prove the guilt of the accused. This legislation is so serious that it falls on the accused to prove his innocence. That is what that member, Honorable Member for Christchurch East, meant when he said the legislation is so serious that even the burden of proof is reversed. In other words, Mr. Speaker, there is a presumption of guilt. There is a presumption of guilt. And the person charged must prove his innocence. I thought I had to say that for the benefit of the public who maintain a vested interest in this matter. Your Honor, the time passes and I have a little more to say. I will cut it. And just hope that while the Attorney General is again trying to get my attention, I will ignore him, except to say to you, sir, that I hope that when they bring this Republican Constitution, it really is a constitution that reflects republicanism. And the features of Republican government You know, we've been around here calling ourselves a republic 2.5 years later. We don't have a constitution that is a Republican constitution, except by the theory of what we call presidentialism. So we do have a constitution. We do have a Republican constitution, but it contains Westminster content. And that is our dilemma presently, that we are a republic with a constitution that became Republican only through the theory of presidentialism. In other words, you made the Governor General president. And it has not traveled beyond that. There's still the spirit of Westminsterism within the Constitution of Barbados. And it must now be considered a dereliction of duty when government's principal legal advisor, 2.5 years into republicanism, and this country cannot see a Republican constitution apart from the theory of presidentialism. That is where you are as a lawyer, sir. And you going into the courts out there arguing Westminster law within the context of presidentialist republicanism. That is a dilemma for you as a lawyer. But let the Attorney General give account to you and to this country. And what is the nature of the consultation? Has it been sufficiently public? Or are they cloistered in private rooms, deciding the powers that a prime minister will have, and the powers that a cabinet will have, and the powers that a parliament will have? What is going on? I heard the prime minister a few weeks ago say that she favors a system of national parliamentarians. I hope I don't live the day to see it. I hope I don't live the day to see it, because republicanism is about erasing elitist structures. And we are now offering, perhaps in casual chat, but please, Attorney General, through you, sir, please reject your Prime Minister's suggestion. Let us reduce it to a fireside chat that is no more than that. But the public awaits this constitution, and so do I. And so do all free men who are interested in justice. When will it come? What is its content? Will the public hear of its content before you bring it? Or will you come and drop it in Parliament one day and use your numbers, your overwhelming numbers, to impose it, to foist it on the people of Barbados? Is that what you will do? Or will you take a center spread or several spreads from the nation and GIS? And will you use social media to circulate it among Barbadians so that they can sit and read it? Lawyers and laymen all. It will be written in English. And it is about fundamental rights, freedoms, and obligations. And this government thinks that it is right if it intends to ambush the people of this country with a new so-called Republican constitution. Tell us its content. Give us a week or two to read it before we can say yea or nay. What this government is doing in relation to that constitution is wrong. And I say it is wrong. Your Honor, I had a few more things to say. I recognize the hour. I had no intention of being on my feet at this time. I apologize if I have been excessive, boring as well, yes. I expect that from you. I expect that from you, so that I will curtail the additional subjects that I had intended to address. And I will just repeat that I am troubled, more troubled than they are by the content of what I have said. I know they're troubled. I know they're disturbed. I know they're dejected. I know they're angry. I know. I know. I know. I know they're angry. I know they're angry at the disclosures that have been made about the infelicities in this government. I know they're angry about the possible corruption. I know they're angry about the possible corruption that exists at the heart of this government. I know they're upset about it. But it is my duty to bring it to the attention of the people of this country and to tell the people of this country that this government has not only mismanaged the economy, that this government has not only manhandled matters of society, but that this government is more than likely engaged in infelicitous conduct in relation to public monies. More than likely. And Mr. Speaker, I want to express deepest gratitude to you for giving me the time that you have given me. I'm obliged to you, sir.